Good evening. This is the October 22nd, 2019 meeting of the East Long Meadow Town Council. We'll begin the meeting now with our Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And as always, we ask that you keep our first responders and our servicemen and women around the world in your thoughts this evening. Thank you. Pursuant to Massachusetts general law, this meeting is being audio taped and videotaped. If there is anyone in the audience this evening doing the same, would you please identify yourselves? And it does not appear that that's the case. Okay. Moving on to public comments, we have our police chief, D'Alessio, here to give us an update on our 125th celebration. Chief.
That's correct. Thank you, Council, for having me tonight. Let me speak for a few minutes, take up your time. So on behalf of the 125th Anniversary Committee, I'm here to give you just an update on where we're at, and then we have one final event that I just want to touch base on for the remaining of the year. So I'm on the subcommittee, which for the 125th, the Gala Subcommittee, which is the final dinner that we're going to have November 16th at St. Luke's Greek Church. As you know, some of you are members of the committee, and it's made up of people from the town, citizens, private citizens, and then also people from the departments employed by the town. So the night kicks off on Saturday, November 16th, as you well know. I just like to use this platform to get the message out there to the people who watch this platform and pay attention to the council meetings, and hopefully that we can enlighten them to come and enjoy the night also. It is a 200 seating capability that night. We're going to be limiting it to 200 seats. So it's not like at the door you can get a ticket. That won't be possible. It will be Saturday, November 16th at the St. Luke's Greek Church. We appreciate them offering their venue for us. They've done many events for the town in the past, and this is another extension of their goodwill toward the town of East Long Meadow. Most of the events can be held on by local business partners in town. Our catering that night will be done by Three Guys Catering. They're a local outfit here in East Long Meadow. Our desserts are coming from Pete's Sweets and La Fiorentina Restaurant. The music is going to be by a two-piece band. I forget their name off the top of my head. They're dinner music style. They'll be running some music all night long. It starts at 5:30 for a social hour till about maybe 7 o'clock. It's semi-formal attire. It's an over 21 and over crowd, so there's no kids allowed, unfortunately, at this event. So I'm asking you to get it out to your platforms. It's on the town website. Dinner will start at 7 o'clock. We have a 4-station dinner set up where there's going to be a carving station, a vegetable station, a pasta station, and then a chicken station. The social hour being served with hors d'oeuvres. Dessert, like I mentioned, music. We have great raffle prizes to give away that night for the lucky winners. They'll be happy to win some of the prizes. So we're just looking to make sure we get the word out there, and everybody can attend. Again, but the seating is limited to 200, so we want to fill the place up. We want to bring the spirit. The last real official event of the anniversary of the town that night will be the 16th. They're $40 a ticket, just to let you know. You can get them through the town manager's office, I believe. Mary?
Sure.
Yes. And they're online also so for the social media people out there, Eventbrite has it posted. But if you have a platform you want to share this information with, we would appreciate it. Like I said, 200 tickets are being offered to attend that night. The raffle, it's all for the wrap up of the 125th. If you have any questions, I'd be certainly happy to attend. But I appreciate you, and let's take a few minutes here to get the word out. And Bruce Moore will be doing the MC for the night. So he's kind of a history buff. We have some videos being, or pictures, slide pictures maybe from Don Mackey being thrown out there during the night to watch. Sorry about that, Don.
That's okay.
So we're going to make it a fun night, basically, and I know some people are already committed, and we're happy about that, but we want to make sure we fill the place up with the 200 tickets that we can offer to the public.
Cool.
Through the chair.
Yes.
You said tickets are available online. Do you go to the town's website and then click under the 125th celebration? Can you get them that way, or?
The link for it is Eventbrite, so
Okay.
if you have to be a social on that, they
Yep.
have the link for the buying the tickets there.
Okay,
The link will, I think we posted it to the town's Facebook page,
okay.
so there will be a link to go on to Eventbrite,
Yep.
and you can purchase those. It says $36.16, but when you add the fee in, it comes out to $40.
Yeah.
Or you can walk up to Mary's desk there. Jen has at the department.
You can walk up to my
town
desk
manager.
too, it's all
Yeah.
right.
And you can get them there, but the social media part of it is Eventbrite, online.
Great.
But there is links out there on our website. The town official website and then the Facebook page, they should have the links up and running by now.
Sounds good.
All right.
And
Mr.
event,
Social Media here
yeah, I
is
was just
helping
trying to
us
get
out.
in there. Eventbrite is, the Bright is spelled B-R-I-T-E, not T
Correct. I'm
with a
sorry,
G.
yes.
So EVENTBRITE.com. I'm just trying to see what's the code to get into it if you just go into that. So I was stalling just a little bit.
Did you just order or sell tickets?
All right,
It's
yep,
easy
just
to
type in
see.
East Long Meadow in the search parameter up top, and then the 125 will automatically populate. So it's again, it's EVENTBRITE.com.
Right. For those who are out there that are, again, social savvy, they know where they're going. Us people, we go to Mary's office and get them.
They're watching us on YouTube, TV right now, so
Right,
obviously
right.
they don't get online.
So I appreciate it, unless you have any other questions, I won't take any more time up tonight on you.
Thank you, we
All
look
right,
forward to it.
Thank you.
For all your hard work on this.
Thank you.
It's been a year-long of great activities and a lot of effort. Okay, moving on to council comments. Does anyone here have a comment this evening? Mr. Henry?
Come to my attention that people have noticed my absence in the last few meetings, and I want to assure everyone that my travel plans by my significant other were made before I had even thought of running, and certainly before I thought of winning a seat. So I will try to be more punctual, not be out of the country at meeting times.
Do you plan to surrender your passport?
That's all.
I would have
Yes,
a comment
Mr.
through the chair as well. A week ago today, I had the pleasure of meeting with our school committee, or various members of the
yes.
school committee, our superintendent, principals, and MSBA, and they made a great presentation on, looking at the school and what their plans might be going forward. We also spent an hour going through the school. Our superintendent was there as well to talk about the mechanical deficiencies. And I left there with a document, and it is their latest and greatest 5-year capital plan. So if any council members would like a copy of that, I'd be happy to share it with you.
Did you get a sense from the MSBA representatives what their feelings were?
Well, they seemed very interested, and I think they said this was their 7th year, and there was a lot of numbers discussed. Numbers discussed meaning we have approximately 840 students enrolled in the school at this point in time. We talked about plans that could be changing around the community that could affect that, and one of those topics could even be 330 Chestnut Street. Nobody knows exactly how that's going to sort out at this point in time, but it could have an effect on enrollment in the school if there are units occupied that would supply children that would be in the school at that time. We talked about the impact that it could. The other impact would be on public safety, but that's really not wrapped into the school piece of it, except where our school resource officer might have to come into play. But other than that, they took lots of notes, asked lots of questions, and I can say that everybody there from the school committee and the superintendent and other parties, including Bruce, had all the information in the documents that they had. I don't believe any questions went unanswered at that time. And if there were any questions, they knew right where to go for the information to answer the questions. So I thought it was very favorable.
Good.
And now we can just wait, but it has been, I believe, what, 7 years, right? So,
This is their 7th application submittal.
so we'll see where it goes.
Good.
Thank you.
Anybody else with comments? Okay. Moving on to number 5, Town Manager's Report.
Thank you. Following up on Councilor Kane's comments, we had our department heads meeting on Wednesday of last week, and the superintendent reported that we're now number 23 in the queue for school funding.
So based on that meeting from Tuesday, or?
No, I
but
don't,
just
I think that was just
a
part of his
previously, yeah.
report that has been ongoing, if you will, and then the exam on Tuesday, or the walkthrough, I'm sure did nothing to hurt that. Most of my report tonight does talk about what was reported at the department heads meeting. I will start by saying, however, that we did finalize the contract with the new town clerk, and also finalized a contract with Jennifer Kerr, who's the assistant to the town manager, and she started a week or so ago. So those pieces are in place. The town clerk's been functioning as 3 persons in one this week. We've teased her about it because she's the town clerk this week, she's the assistant town clerk, and she's also been the senior clerk until today when Mary O'Connor returned from her vacation. So she's been quite like a centipede, running around to the counter and back and forth and trying to manage all the requests. It's been, seems to me, the busiest week since I've been here in terms of requests for
Always.
documentation, certificates of varying types. So the dust is somewhat settling in the town manager's area. Our HR employee, Elaine Grimaldi, returned today from a short vacation that she took, so that was also very encouraging. So, as I said, the pieces are in place, and we can maybe start to have some real substantive discussions on some of our problems. I wanted to report that we did, in fact, resolve a couple of the procurement issues that we talked about last time. The voting machines, depending on your action on a motion that's later on in your agenda, that procurement will go out tomorrow based on that vote. And also the increase in the amount on the 360 general code amount was resolved. I did speak with the hotline people at the, what's called the 30B hotline out of the Mass Inspector General's office to get clarification on what I had represented to you last week, and in fact, we can pay that bill. It's all appropriate, so that's been documented. So going to the department heads meeting, I don't want to insult your intelligence. You can all look at the report, so I don't want to read it to you, but there's a lot of software upgrades coming about between the ADP payroll processing, as well as Ryan Quimby remarked on a Munis update. Unfortunately, they're going to be almost simultaneous in their implementation, so I'm a little nervous about that, but people are pretty resilient, and I think we'll be able to roll through the various steps of these procedures. The health department, the new trash cart delivery is coming up in November. Amy Petrovsky had a great deal of information for everyone with great detail about how that was going to be implemented and what the senior, what Carolyn Brennan then opined about what the senior center was doing to make life easier for seniors to get those carts, to wheel in their old carts. The health department will go and take the wheels off for them, and everybody's really bending over backwards to make life as facile for residents as they can. Bruce is here, and I let him speak for the DPW, but he did report that the final paving on those 3P streets is going to take place in 2 weeks. The school department, as I said, reported their MSBA rating, and they're also scheduling a youth safety night with the Hampden District Attorney's Office. I had participated in some of those years back when I was with the DA's office, and I found them to be very beneficial to the school population. Mostly they deal with internet and the fact that once you post something, you know, it never goes away for the rest of your life, and they try to impress that on the kids. HR, there was a seminar that was attended by Jennifer Kerr, myself, and Corrine, our benefits coordinator, which was focusing essentially on the impact of several federal statutes, primarily the American with Disabilities Act, which may require us to revise all of our job descriptions, which is going to be a tall order, but I think it's a necessary one. We did receive our new growth certification from the Department of Revenue, $478,000, I believe was the number. So that's a figure that's key to the tax recap process, which will begin tomorrow. I met this morning with our finance director and inquired about the status of that. So that process is going to begin tomorrow. The library had a great report. They, as you see in my report, the Children's Department won the Golden Daisy Award as a family-friendly place, and I think we incorporated the email from the library in your package last week. So they're doing great things for the children, and they had a lot of programs scheduled throughout the balance of October and November, one on IEPs, one on parenting, and very significant and necessary social programs to help parents with their struggles. The only department that was absent was the civil dispatch. I believe the director was at a training. The planning department was represented by Connie, who's also here tonight, obviously, and she made reference to the master plan, which is ongoing, and a special project, this community resilience building workshop, which is a initiative out of the governor's office, and there are going to be 2 4-hour dates in November, to which most, if not all, of the department heads have been invited, and we're looking forward to that. The ultimate result will be to certify East Long Meadow as a municipality that's got its vulnerability status under control, so that in the event of disasters or something short of disaster, but an unpleasantness, that the community will have its systems in order for how to address all of that. Treasurer reported the quarterly bills are out, so some phone calls are starting to come, as are the water sewer delinquencies. And fire, the ambulance acquisition is still pending. I believe the chief might want to come in, if not at your next meeting, at the one subsequent to that. We still don't have any written proposal from Action Ambulance. It's been pending for several weeks now. And I've not seen anything in writing, which in my opinion is sort of a prerequisite to any sort of analysis of where we're going on that subject, at least vis-a-vis the mutual agreement with Hamden. In the building department, Ed Legue resigned. Finally, I don't mean finally, I mean he had been out of work for quite some time, and he made the decision to actually resign from his employment. And has spent some time with Don Mackey, who advised me that the LCAT contract only has a year to run, so he's anxiously awaiting conversation on how to address that matter going forward, so Don and I can sit together soon and talk about that. Otherwise, it's business as usual. Lots of traffic, lots of conversation. What I tried to accomplish at the department heads meeting was to encourage genuine, sincere communication of what the department heads wanted to see going forward. And what I took from the comments that were made was a real potpourri, but I think in general it was a desire for some stability after some feeling that things are upset or have been for a little bit. So I did my best to reassure them that that's in the making, that your processes are underway, and I was really just trying to get a conversation going, and I I asked all the department heads to speak up at the meeting. Several did. But I also gave them all the opportunity to email me privately, anonymously. I want to know what they're thinking and what their problems are so that we can try to address them. That's all I have for you tonight. Thanks.
Any questions?
Yes.
Yeah,
through the chair. Under police, I noticed there was a discussion with regards to violations of the commercial vehicle bylaw.
Yes.
Could you elaborate a little bit more?
Well, Chief DeLassio that was the only comment he had to make beyond his comments in response to my request for comments. Apparently, there's one or two parties in town that are well-known to the police department and to perhaps many of you that park commercial vehicles on residential sites, and there's an ongoing concern about whether those parties should be ticketed, and what's the resolution if the tickets go unpaid, and do we want to get into like a civil proceeding to bring them to court for non-payment of fines. There was several heads nodding in the room, so I think others that were present knew the people he was referring to. I didn't. But he didn't really offer any other supplemental information about that, just that it's sort of an ongoing thorn in his side, I think was the general impression he left me with.
Okay. I just wasn't sure if it's something with the zoning enforcement officer doing
It
it,
may-
not doing it.
It may end up on that agenda at some point if it doesn't get resolved satisfactorily through the police department or neighbors who might be complaining about that issue. It was important, but I didn't get the sense that it was a burning issue for him. I think he
Okay.
just wanted to make everybody aware that it's ongoing.
Thank you.
To follow up on Ralph's question, so is there a next step planned, or
With respect to that,
are you aware of a next step being planned, or is it just going to slide off?
no, I think he's planning on issuing citations. And then, as I said, the discussion was, how far do you want to push that?
Thanks.
And we did not reach any resolution on that.
Okay.
Through the chair?
Sure.
I would just elaborate a little bit that if the police department's involved, it probably means those motor vehicles are out in the street, which would fall under traffic rules and order. If the trucks are off the street on private property, it would resort back to our code enforcement officer, meaning our building inspector.
Anything else? Okay, moving on to approval of minutes. In your packet, you have the October 8th, 2019 open session minutes that require acceptance this evening, so if you've not already, would you please look those over, and if there are no corrections or other comments, I will enter.
There, on, sorry,
That's
last
okay.
paragraph, first page, it says Counselor Ralph. If that could be adjusted to Counselor Page, I would appreciate it. Other than that,
It's so sensitive.
everything looked
AI.
That's right, inside joke.
How about
PAG.
We always miss
That
that
was an
one.
inside joke.
She's doing 3 jobs.
Thank you. She's doing a great job. Everything else looked
She
perfect.
spelled it right.
She did. She did it awesome.
With, in addition to that adjustment, is there anything else that jumps out at you?
Anything substantive.
If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the October 8th open session minutes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. And abstentions, and 1 abstention. Also in your packet are the minutes of our October 8th executive session, excuse me. Again, if there are no changes or details you wish to point out, then I will also entertain a motion to accept those executive session minutes.
So moved.
Motion's been made and
Seconded.
seconded to approve the October 8th executive session minutes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. Abstentions, 1. Thank you. Moving on to item 7, communication, correspondence, and announcements. I'm going to, at this point in the agenda, give an update on the Town Manager Search Screening Committee, because by my own oversight that I take whole responsibility for in a very busy and kind of jumbled week I had this past week, I failed to ask our clerk to put it on the agenda under old business. However, I believe I can still achieve the same end result by talking about it under announcements and communication. And that is that at our last meeting, I spoke about the fact that we had 10 interested residents who had expressed a desire to help out on the Town Manager's Screening Committee. We agreed here that we would move our size of the screening committee from 5 up to 7 members, and that we would have the committee appointed around the middle of the month. And so I've been able to do that. We have 7 members who will sit on this committee. They will receive notification tomorrow. So unless they're even if they watch, tomorrow would be the first time. So I'll give you those names now. Their charge will be to work with Mr. Lynch, Bernie Lynch, our consultant with Community Paradigm, to look at the applications that he brings forward and vet those applications down to about 8. And those 8 will receive a face-to-face interview sometime in the very latter part of November. I spoke with Mr. Lynch by email this a little while ago, actually, and he's anticipating around the Thanksgiving week on either side will be the actual interviews face-to-face with the candidates who make it to that point. Those are in, per open meeting law, those will be done in executive session. When the screening committee reaches a decision on the number of candidates they wish to offer to us as finalists, those meetings will be conducted publicly in this room, likely in December at some point, certainly before the holiday break. That said, the members that will be on this screening committee are Larry Levine, Richard Ficero, Mary O'Connor, Christine Williams, Richard Gibo Jr., Andrew Frazier, and Connor O'Shea. In appointing to this committee, and on the suggestion of Mr. Lynch in a generic format, he has no sense of these names yet, simply they're interested residents to him. He recommended, as I've said to you through emails before, that you reach out to the various populations in town to try to gather some representation from all various entities. And I consciously looked to involve folks whose names are new to us, simply as interested residents who wish to do an honorable job here in helping the council choose its next manager. And so for that reason, though, the other candidates certainly are equally as interested and genuine in their intent to help the town, those individuals have some standing relationships with some of our town's work already on various committees, and for no reason other than that, I tried to go with individuals who are offering their help to send the message that we want this to be a collaborative government, and we're looking for folks who are willing to step up and help out. So that said, again, with the conversation with Mr. Lynch, the first meeting of this screening committee, which will be orientation, a little bit in nature, will be Thursday, November 13th at around 6 p.m. I can't tell you where yet because I've just spoken with Jeannie to secure a meeting room, but the closing date for the applications is the 9th of November, and that must be a Friday. And so Mr. Lynch is ready to come out of the gate very quickly after that. So that's all I have there, unless anyone has questions. Good. Okay. Then we can move on to, we have nothing under public hearings. Under orders of the day, no licensing managers, but under financial managers, Mr. Fenny, our DPW superintendent, with the Municipal Small Bridge Grant Program. Bruce, good evening.
How are we doing?
Hi,
We're
Bruce.
well, how are you?
Good. Bruce Fenny, Superintendent of Public Works. I've come before you this evening for your consideration for the Mass DOT Municipal Small Bridge Program. Our structure over the Porter Road, South Branch Mill River was rated in fair condition based on the Mass DOT culvert inspection performed on March of 2017 and is in need of rehabilitation.
May I just stop you, Bruce? That is, I don't think most folks would even recognize it as a bridge, but it's right before the entrance to the Pine Knoll.
Batting cages.
Batting, yes.
Yes,
Okay.
right there. So I never realized ourselves that we had bridges in town, but these are small bridges. They're actually considered culverts, small bridges, so culvert/bridge. So during their inspection, they found some serious issues with that structure. We applied for the grant, I believe, in late 2018, received word in February 5th of 2019 that we were awarded the grant. This is a reimbursable grant through the state, so we obviously need to allocate those funds just like the sewer and stormwater asset management plan that the Mass DEP awarded us this past year also. So I'm looking for your consideration on approving this funding to get the project underway.
And the amount is predicated on the numbers in the report?
Yes, so it's a $260,000 grant. If there's any overages or anything else, the grant will fund up to $500,000.
Okay.
Just in case, like you said, when you get into replacing bridges and things like that, between notice of intent and everything else through the Conservation Commission, or if they unearth some unforeseen issues that may be out at that area.
Are you anticipating starting that now?
Well, our
Or-
25% design is due in December of this year, so I'm kind of a little bit late in the game, but I've given the engineering firm the kind of notice to proceed through an email, just to get going on the project. So 25% design is due in December, and then the 100% design is due by March of early spring. Typically, these projects don't get underway till the summertime. Obviously, when flows and things of that nature in that area are subsided a little bit. So that's the plan. And it must be completed by December of 2020.
So a year, about 14
Yep.
months from now.
Sure.
And just curiously, the duration of that project, assuming that in a perfect world you don't
Right.
get any surprises.
I wish I could give you that answer. I don't want to give you something, say 4 to 6 weeks, when it may only take a couple weeks. That's what I'm guessing, but I'm not sure. It's too early to tell. Until we got to hire a contractor, go through the whole bidding process, so I don't want to
Questions?
speak out of turn.
Yeah, through the chair. The $260,000 that you're requesting to be appropriated by this body will allow you to do the engineering and the build?
Yes, yes.
Okay, we know what the build is going to cost. Do you have estimates of what the build is going to cost?
Well, I do, the engineering is $59,900, so the balance of that, out of that, so it's about $200,000 for the construction phase.
Okay, so this is a one-time cost?
Yes, and
To
like
be
I said, if
appropriated.
there's any overages or anything else, I submit them to Mass DOT for reimbursement, and they'll cover up to $500,000. It's just like our Chapter 90 funding. It's the same thing.
So we don't have to come back and look for more money at a later date?
No.
So if we appropriate 260 and it comes in at 285, you apply for the 285 and it comes back to us. We don't
Yes.
have to appropriate
No.
a different, okay.
Nope.
And through the chair, what was the cap again, Bruce? How much will they fund
500,000.
up to 500?
Yes.
Okay.
Through the chair, is that as near as possible to a guarantee? In other words, it's not subject to the Senate pulling money back or not
No, I
appropriating,
believe
or-
that money's already been allocated, I believe in 2018.
I mean, I know you can't guarantee it, but.
Right, exactly. It's, obviously, we got a
Okay.
letter from the Mass DOT, obviously announcing that we received the grant, with those stipulations in it. We had to sign a contract with the Mass DOT. I believe Denise, before she left in, June, signed off on that contract with Mass DOT.
Through the chair. So from reading this, it looks like there's some drainage. Basically, you're going to stop that from draining there and then slope everything so that it drains to a different location.
No, this is just replacing the structure in itself.
You're going to replace the whole structure?
The whole structure's coming out and a brand new one's being put in.
Really?
How old is that structure?
Early 1960s. Yeah. Culverts are typically precast. They're poured obviously on land, and then the demolition occurs. They cut up the old one, take the old one out, and
Drop the new one in.
hopefully as easy as just setting it back in place. So there's a little bit involved with that, but
Any other questions?
Just through the chair, the last paragraph, in order to preserve the structure and extend its useful life, the Department of Public Work proposes to eliminate the drainage grates and repair the deteriorated portions.
the drainage grates are actually the catch, it looks like a catch basin, it just flows through the structure itself. Those are going to be eliminated. The stream itself is not going to be diverted or in any way.
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying.
Okay.
So are you going to replace the entire concrete structure
Without the drainage grates in them.
without the drainage grates
Yes.
and then regrade?
Yes.
Okay.
And they're going to be doing 100 feet before the bridge and 100 feet behind the bridge. I've also sent out an email today to the engineering firm to see if they can incorporate a sidewalk over that
Oh, that'd be
bridge.
nice.
Just so if we ever get out to that area, to the Meadowbrook School area, we won't have to do any of that work. So,
You mean when we get out there?
there you go. Yes.
Through the chair. I can only guess those drainage grates are being eliminated because it's an improved product from 1960.
Yes.
So
and
where is that water going to be picked up?
Probably down the road, I guess you could say.
If you got
so to
100
speak.
feet on either side,
Right, and
somewhere in
it'll
that
just,
area,
it's just gonna
right?
travel a different path. It'll probably be down to the next drainage structure in that area. That's all that's gonna happen. I think they're eliminating that so you don't get direct, I guess, I don't wanna say contamination from the road directly into the stream, which it is actually doing now. So I'm assuming that's why, and the salt and everything else, so.
Well, water usually freezes on the bridges first, so if you can divert that water somewhere else, it'll
Right.
create less chances of having an icy bridge or having to salt it and put all
Exactly.
that water into, chemicals into the water.
Yep.
so.
Through the chair, I'm assuming ultimately wherever you drain it is probably going to go back to the wetlands like it does in
Unfortunately,
every
yes, and
other
I wish I
area?
had the answer to tell you where it's exactly going, but typically it eventually will go right into your streams and rivers.
Through the chair, we don't have any finance representative here tonight, but this is going to be in a separate fund?
Yes.
Specifically for that use?
Yes,
And the grant money will come back into that? And
Yes.
pay the general fund back the monies?
Yes.
Yes.
That were
Yes.
spent out?
yeah, typically, like I said, in Chapter 90, we go through that whole process,
Right.
bid documents, the whole 9 yards. We submit those to the Mass DOT, and they reimburse us for those funds at the end of the project.
So the need for the money now is so you can start the engineering portion of that?
Yes.
Even though the work won't start until spring, late spring
Exactly,
next year?
yes, yes.
Pat?
So to follow up on Tom's question, would we allocate the entire 250 now, or would we allocate the roughly 60,000 this year, or now for the
You need to
engineering
allocate
study?
the 260.
I-
That's
For the-
just because of the
for the grant?
bidding.
Yeah, I think
Yes,
that's
the whole
cleaner.
260,000.
yep.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm assuming what we're doing is basically like putting it into an account, and the only thing it
Yep.
can be used for is that, and then they're going
It's,
to redo
right,
it. And
it's restricted to that use
Exactly.
only. If there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion. You have that, Tom?
I'll make a motion, the town vote to appropriate $260,000 by borrowing or otherwise for the construction, reconstruction, and/or maintenance with regards to the Municipal Bridge Improvement Program in East Long Meadow, to be expended under the jurisdiction of the Department of Public Works, and said sum to be reimbursed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Second.
If I can, through the chair, discussion.
Sure. Motion's been made and seconded, discussion.
Discussion is, I would like to add to that, amend that motion to not exceed $260,000. And to put it into a fund specifically for this use, which isn't clear in this motion.
Excuse me, that motion's drafted by the finance director specifically, so.
The motion, Jeannie, has been by Sarah Menard, so she's okay with this?
I'm not okay with it, I'm sorry. There's no clear location for this money to be put. What I'm saying is, I'd like to see the money put into a fund.
Can you just add into a designated fund?
Yes.
Just, I don't see there's any harm in that.
How about not to exceed?
And you want to do not to,
Well, we're
I don't think we have-
appropriating
I-
260, so I don't
Doesn't the
think
cap
we have
cover
to.
us on
the
that?
cap of $500,000 is the safety net here, right?
The Ralph said.
Right, just for unforeseen things.
But we're only
We're
appropriating
only asking for
260,000. We're not appropriating any more. If it goes above that, they would have to come back for an additional
Exactly. If
appropriation.
we
Yeah.
see some unforeseen problem or something, like you said, that we haven't investigated or found out, like you said, that's why the Mass DOT will award us up to $500,000
Right.
just for unseen things that may happen. Like you said, what if we get into the project and we find an extra $150,000 worth of work? We can't stop the project, we want to continue moving forward, and I may have to come back to you at some point in
Right.
time if it happens that way.
And
But
if we add in
they're
not
gonna
to
pay
exceed,
you
then
back
we're
up to
handcuffing
$500,000.
ourselves.
Yeah.
I would
Yes.
like to second the motion as regards the separate fund, but not as regards the,
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll move that
So,
amendment.
what
not
did
to
we
exceed.
agree on? In a designated or in a restricted fund? You know, what's your pleasure for that clause?
Designated.
Designated?
Yeah.
So, a motion to appropriate $260,000 by borrowing or otherwise, blah, 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 with regards to be placed in a designated fund and expended under the jurisdiction? Do you have that, Jeannie? Huh?
So move the town vote to appropriate $260,000 to be placed into a designated fund by borrowing,
And then keep going, yeah.
or otherwise for the construction, reconstruction, and/or maintenance with regards to the Municipal Bridge Improvement Program in East Long Meadow to be extended under the jurisdiction of the Department of Public Works and said sum to be reimbursed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
So just
That's
a
good.
point of order, are we voting on the amendment
We're
first?
voting on an amendment
And then the
first,
main
and
motion?
then-
The main,
Yes.
okay,
Mhm.
just want to be clear.
Okay. All those, unless there's further discussion, all those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Now, all those in favor of the motion as amended,
Aye.
please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Can I just ask Bruce a quick question through the chair?
Certainly.
Just, I had a couple constituent calls from around, because they didn't know about, apparently a developer's trying to get rid of a couple lots and said, well, and this has been for years, no association. So they're asking about how to, create an association. suggested, I said, I really can't be involved in it because of what I'm doing, but I said, maybe talk to you. But one of the points that I mentioned from day one, and I actually mentioned it back in the 80s, as I mentioned in previous times, is maybe you can look into how many of these associations are, and then maybe use the storm fund to be able to get easements or right-of-ways and have the town take care of it. Because now that we're collecting the 25 and 500 and so forth into the stormwater fund, because the reality is people don't associate.
Right.
And I said I used my own street as an example. I couldn't even hold a meeting because one person is a Florida LLC at
Right.
one time and the other one was in foreclosure. And it was owned by a national bank.
Sure.
So it's something that stormwater is an important issue, and this is an issue that I feel may have had good intentions, but in reality, I think the town will do a much better job, and especially now that we have a funding source. So
Right.
I'll
Okay.
probably ask you again in the future, but
Right, yeah. I will look into it. I would just caution the council on some of this, just because some of these detention basins are very old. Some of them haven't been maintained, and those homeowners associations have not maintained them. And there's a lot of them. We would need to, I'm just throwing some figures out there. We're gonna need to purchase equipment and all kinds of things that go along with it. And depending on the homeowners associations, they may want to sell it to the town. I really don't know, but I will look into it.
Yeah.
Get a count of, I guess, privately owned detention and/or retention basins, and get it in front of the council. And,
But I think as moving forward, it's something I think the town should be doing, in my opinion, because as I said, these associations, if they don't form, then what? And then it gets to the point, I understand it's on the
Right.
deeds, I understand all that, but you're also gonna get people, cheap shopping, trying to find somebody or do things
Sure.
themselves and not take care of it.
sure.
Stormwater is an issue that affects our entire community, our entire region. And having it done the right way, now that we have a funding source, and if we
Sure.
do have the equipment can have a long life and also benefit the community in a way, because some of this stuff is back from the 80s.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen, so I think it's important to have it taken care of.
We actually got some calls last week during that storm. A few trees had fallen down the detention basins. They actually asked us to come out and take care of it, and we said, we're sorry, it's on private property. And there's associations attached to them and everything else, so I know people don't even realize when they purchase a home that they're part of an association and supposed to be maintaining some of these things,
It
and
just
funds
doesn't-
supposed to be set up. And I know we visited this, and I don't know how many years ago, I actually started a binder on it with Dave Gramaski, the previous superintendent, on starting that process. I believe it came to a town meeting way back when, I believe.
Well, I know we
Don-
talked to Jim Donahue, a previous town council,
Right.
and he was working on drawing up rough easement agreements, or not easement agreements, right-of-way access and so
Sure.
forth to get in. I just think that we're talking, a process that started in the late 80s, and just as I use the analogy, we use pumping stations. And if a pumping station broke, the town would take care of it, even though it only impacted a finite number of East Long Meadow citizens.
Right.
And I think we should look at these things as the same token as a pumping station. And the further along we go not addressing it, the more it's not going to be taken care
Sure.
of. And now that we have the methodology of the fund, I think that can be something that can come in.
Point of order.
Yes.
This is really not on the agenda.
I understand. I asked permission to see if, now that I had him here. So. And plus I promised a couple constituents. I said, oh, Bruce will be here. If it's allowable, I'll just bring it up.
Yep. Very
Thank
good.
you.
I'll get back to you.
All right. Thank you, Bruce.
Yep.
Moving to old business, the recommendation or an update of the Town Council Planning Matters Committee of Mixed-Use Development Bylaw and rezoning of 330 Chestnut Street from Industrial Garden Park to mixed use, period. You still have the floor, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. We just had another meeting on Monday, and we had a full quorum of members of the subcommittee, and we did our first final pass-through of the original draft sent to us by the planning board. And we're in the process right now, Marilyn is attempting to try to put it together so we can have a second go-through and look at it. We have not gone into the table of uses. That's something we need to do as well, but that's, but the concern on this is we really, really, really need to address the issue of somebody to be able to take our minutes. Right now, we're using one of the seniors who's, has a finite number of hours, is doing a fine job. I did mention when we had Tracy that I did say to the town manager at the time that please make sure that when she's replaced, that the replacement understands that that is part of his or her job description. And it seems that that is not the case, but perhaps should be the case. I understand that, the issue of having minutes is also an issue with conservation. So it's going to become a real issue to us because the minutes that we have in our meeting, we have, if it could, we hope it doesn't ever go to litigation, but it could be. And minutes are extremely important. And I think, having people in the subcommittee being responsible for minutes sours the process of trying to get the quality volunteers that we have for the subcommittee. So that's basically where we're at. We're going to be meeting again in Monday after next at 10:30, also at the school committee meeting room. Thank you.
Okay. We've already covered under old business appointment of the selection committee. Moving to new business, a request for a temporary moratorium on the use of land or the building of structures for ground-mounted photovoltaic systems relative to zoning bylaw Article 7.5, ground-mounted photovoltaic installations. Our Director of Community and Planning is here this evening, Connie Brouders. Good evening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the Town Council. I do like to say ladies, welcome. Thank you. Welcome to our new town clerk, Jean, and our town manager, Mary McNally. Thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation to you. I understand you did receive a memo dated October 16th. Do you have any questions about the memo?
Through the chair.
Certainly.
Do you think the June 30th deadline is adequate, considering, if I read this right, it's got to go through the public hearing, through the planning board process,
And
and
come back to us.
through the town council?
It was through the recommendation of our legal counsel that we insert the date of June 30th. To give you perhaps a little bit of background information, in March 2019, the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission began a solar district local technical assistance project to help municipalities in its service region manage the complexities of being engaged by developers who want to plan, develop, install, and operate large-scale solar arrays as a result of the SMART program promoted by the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources, known as DOER. The acronym SMART stands for Solar Massachusetts Renewable Target, and this is a long-term sustainable solar incentive program to promote cost-effective solar development in the Commonwealth. The net effect of the regulation is that solar development is now a pressing local issue because of a perfect storm of regulations, incentives, and state-sponsored programs, which do an excellent job promoting solar development, but did not recognize the potential pressure large-scale solar development would put on volunteer boards in smaller municipalities and planning departments in large communities. And it's actually created a bubble economy. Everybody wants to get in there to take advantage of the incentives, and the first one in gets the biggest piece of the pie. So solar developers continue to move ahead faster than communities can keep up. Local planning regulations need to be updated to catch up with the level of sophistication currently being deployed by the developers. Towns are also finding that the local taxing mechanism and/or the payment in lieu of taxes, the pilot program or pilot agreements for these arrays, is now under fire from developers from multiple directions. So Specifically, municipalities are being challenged in the following ways. Most towns want solar development, but need help to do it correctly, to do it right. Again, I've expressed to you what has been plaguing municipalities, and especially in central Massachusetts and western Massachusetts, far western Massachusetts. There is also a tax loophole which challenges new issues for some towns. Some towns which planned for and need the tax revenue to support local budgets have lost the revenue. The Pioneer Valley Planning Commission has created a solar working group, of which I am a part. We have approximately 20 planners from the region who are participating. We've been meeting regularly to discuss this challenging and complicated issue, and our goal is to come up with a best practices guide for the installation of large-scale solar arrays in the face of changing regulations for communities before December 31st, 2019. So we've been forging ahead on this quickly and with efficiency. There are some issues with the SMART program. They're unveiling phase, I want to say phase 2, but that might not be the right term. The first phase of the new SMART programs sold out. It was sold out faster than they thought that. It was supposed to take 2 years to complete this, the implementation of this process, and it went like wildfire. So we, as a committee, are strongly urging the DOER to fix the inherent conflict between the green communities rules, by right solar regulations, and the development of local solar planning regulations and bylaws. So we've got a disconnect at the state level also, and it seems that all the parties aren't communicating. So we're trying to hit the pause button. So we do believe, this is a long-winded answer, that by June we should have something in place that allows us to move forward and invite solar array to come into the town, but have it better managed so that we're not overburdened. A sidebar, the utility providers are currently inspecting their infrastructure for capacity and safety. I think we all know what's been happening in California, and it's akin to if you put too many plugs into your electrical outlet, you have a fire. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of study going on. Again, this program took off faster than they thought it would, and they're trying to rein it back a little bit and study it more closely, and have all parties have an agreement or a meeting of the minds that are involved.
Through the chair, just to follow up, typically a moratorium, at least when we were on the planning board, we've done one with the marijuana. The AG allowed you up to a year without really saying anything.
Yeah,
Would it not be more advantageous to do a longer date, and that way there, and then you have in here that if you get it done sooner, great. But if you don't, do you really want to be hung out there with a moratorium that all of a sudden expired and you still haven't finished the bylaw?
Right. Just so we're clear, the whole purpose of the moratorium is just to hit the pause button so that
Absolutely.
there are no other projects ongoing while these rules or new rules are being developed. Certainly a year. Most of the communities in the area that have gone the moratorium route have done a year. There's nothing wrong with asking for or doing a year, and I think
And
that
then
would
if you
pass
get it done
muster as well
sooner,
as anything else.
It's done sooner.
Right.
But if not, at least we still have the moratorium to cover it. That was just my thought on it.
Right. The reason we had proposed end of June was, well, first and foremost, because the planning board and the director thought that that was doable within that time. And secondly, in light of the ongoing lawsuit, didn't want to give any impression that we were simply trying to delay solar installations in the town of East Long Meadow. But as you point out, Councilor Page,
Councilor Ralph.
the surrounding areas, many surrounding areas have adopted a 12-month moratorium. One has gone as far as 15 through town meeting, and the AG is not yet okayed that. That's on hold right now.
Mr. Henry.
So through the chair, are you representing that this June 30 date might be appealing to the party that's trying to build a solar array and might calm them down?
The two are different.
Is that what you're
Two
saying?
different things.
No.
You mean if there's a party out there thinking about it that has
Yes.
not yet submitted a proposal?
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
I would draw them.
maybe, but yeah, the pending proposal will not be affected by this moratorium.
Okay.
And if I may, we did receive an application today for another solar array, combination rooftop solar array and ground-mounted solar array in the Garden Industrial District. So we do have that we're going to be moving forward on, because here we are tonight asking for the moratorium, and the application came in today.
Well, as town attorney, I advised Ms. Broders that we would have to consider how to deal with that application submitted unquestionably because the moratorium was on the agenda. So we'll have to figure out how the moratorium, if passed by this town council, or the process has begun by a vote tonight, how that would affect this application submitted today.
So my question would be,
Go.
if we can have up to a year without the AG's office getting a little squeamish about it, then why wouldn't we use that full year versus the June 30th and lock ourselves up unnecessarily in case there's some
I'm okay with that.
bumps along the way?
I'm okay with that as town council.
Fine.
Through the chair, because it's posted on today's agenda, if we vote tonight to move forward, either 6 months or a year, this is the date that we would come back to? Or does it have to be published in a publication like we used to with zoning bylaw changes?
Yeah, it's going to have to be published as with any other zoning bylaw change, and ultimately has to be passed by the town council. I think the planning board is contemplating a joint meeting of the planning board and the town council for the conduct of that public hearing.
So it would be the publication of, the public hearing that would stem from this vote tonight, that would be the date that we'd go back to in terms of...
When the, excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, I'm trying to look back
Sure,
at
when the
zoning
vote,
bylaws.
I think it's a very good question. When the vote is finally taken to adopt the bylaw, I don't know that you can retroactively impose a moratorium, but I think, you know, we may be in a position of having to argue that when the process was begun, the moratorium, public was on notice of the moratorium being impending, and that would strengthen an argument that an application would not have to be processed while this moratorium process is being undergone.
So reasonably, the application you accept today should move forward then?
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
The
Reasonably, it
application
should
you've
be dealt with.
accepted today.
I guess I'm not prepared to answer that. The
Okay.
question was raised yesterday in the notion that the application would be filed, and I thought I would wait to know that the application was filed and wait to know how this town council voted to broach that issue. But
Okay.
I think reasonable arguments can be made both ways.
Through the chair.
Done.
I'm thinking because this process has gone through the planning board, it's already out in the public, that we might, you know, obviously, we'll get a definitive answer. It might be already, you know, unless they put in their application prior to this starting. I mean, I'm reminded of how many years ago we had the adult bylaw, you know, in terms of restriction and the fact that that it was, you know, that it was set up to create this restriction of adult businesses within certain distance from schools and stuff, and that started the process, and because the petitioner was on notice of it, that allowed the petitioners to come in behind it. So that's what I was wondering, because this must have been on a published agenda and so forth, that going through the planning board of restrictions. So it might be just a question of timing, or, you know, like, because this is, obviously was in the pipeline. So just a thought there, because it's not like something's the first instance today on the agenda. This has already been on a matter voted on by the planning board to be sent to us.
No, it's a good thought, and we'll do some quick research and assist the department and how to respond to the applicant.
So through the chair.
Yes.
Just a quick question on the moratorium. It says on the use of land or the building of structures for ground mounted. So roof mounted would not be covered under this
No,
moratorium?
They're allowed.
That's right.
Just
Okay,
ground
just-
mounted.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
I would suggest, you've suggested a change in the timing to reflect a year rather than that specific date. I'd also reflect or suggest adding a word in the last line. I would say it is amendments that regulate the installation of ground-mounted solar energy systems, comma, including in residential districts. Because I think ultimately the new zoning bylaws will affect other districts as well.
Fair enough. Any other questions? I'll entertain that motion then.
So the motion is, we're going to be changing the end date from June 30th to December 31st?
To,
Or
no.
1 year from today,
Right, to,
October 22nd, 2020?
right,
Yes.
Which enables us to take it out as far as we can if it's
Right.
from today.
Okay.
10/22/20.
And then in the last sentence,
It's right here.
the word including?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let me read it?
Sure.
Okay, let me just make sure I get my, okay. 10/22, and in residential district.
Including.
Including in residential, including before in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I make a motion to approve a temporary moratorium on the use of land or the building of structures for ground-mounted photovoltaic systems relative to zoning bylaw Article 7.5 ground-mounted photovoltaic installations. The temporary moratorium shall be in effect through October 22nd, 2020, or until such time as the town adopts zoning bylaw amendments that regulate the installation of ground-mounted solar energy systems, including in residential districts, whichever occurs earlier.
Second.
Further discussion?
Motion's been made and seconded. More discussion? Yes?
Are we approving a moratorium, or are we making the recommendation that it goes back to the planning board for them to hold the public hearing, and then it comes back to us for a public hearing and readings on it?
I think approving is an accurate word, but under the
It's implied that the process has to go
Right,
back
under
as you just
the
described.
regulations regulating the process, it now goes back to the planning
Right.
board.
And I have no problems with that as long as we know that there's a
Right.
process that does have to go through the planning board.
Right.
It's not just, we took a vote, that's it.
Right. It's just step one.
So if I may, it would be most time efficient if we did have a combined meeting with the town council and planning board, public hearing? Is that?
Can we
Let's
do
vote
that?
on this.
Yeah, we need to vote on this first.
Yeah, let's vote.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously. Are you asking, Connie, that a joint meeting would expedite the process? Is that
Yes.
what, I'm not sure we can do it that way by charter, can we?
Well, I wonder if you can simply have the planning board in attendance when the town council conducts its public hearing.
Versus
mean,
having it go back to them?
Well, it does have to go back to them for review, but I think they can, at their next meeting, review and come back to, make its recommendation back to the town council, which then can schedule the public hearing with the planning board in attendance.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Let me think about that.
I see some former planning board members looking askance.
I'll just say two things. As we have two meetings in November, probably one in December, because the second meeting, the second Thursday of December falls adjacent to Christmas. And I'm anticipating that the public interviews for the permanent town manager are going to occur at that December 10th meeting. So it would be difficult to assume that if this is an appropriate way to go, that we could also squeeze that into our December calendar. I'd be more comfortable, if it's appropriate, to combine and do that work, to be looking in January. I don't think we can rush and compress when the manager issue really has to be paramount right now.
So if I understand what I'm hearing correctly, you would like to move a public hearing to January?
We know that you have to go to, this has to go back to your board, your planning board. But to have a joint meeting of the two boards, I'd be more comfortable waiting till January. I think it's unrealistic that we could get that accomplished. When is your next planning board meeting, Connie?
November 17th.
17th?
I believe it's the 17th. We have just one meeting in November because of the holiday.
Okay.
So-
That's how I'm looking at it. What's the thought, what are your thoughts? Because there's some concern about
What Ralph and I are
this.
struggling with is that we were looking at this process in the same vein you would look at adopting a new bylaw. And the planning board is required to have their own public hearing, and then they make a recommendation, and then the bylaw comes to the town council, and then the town council has two hearings. And it sounds like, I'm sorry?
Two readings.
Two readings, right. But they're both public hearings.
Correct.
And so the question is, if we have a joint meeting without the planning board having a public hearing, are we missing a step?
Right, that was what I was trying to say, and I don't believe I articulated it properly, but I don't think a joint meeting, I think what it does is supplant the full process, and I would be a little concerned about that.
I will sort through the proper procedure as town attorney and advise the planning board where indisputably it goes
Yeah.
next.
Yeah,
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Pat?
For clarification, that was exactly my question. We can certainly hold a joint meeting, but can we hold a joint public hearing?
I don't believe it.
And that's the issue
That's
that I'm
right,
unclear
That's what I'm
on.
trying to say. I don't think we can get away with
I wouldn't imagine there'd be any reason why we couldn't, except for state law.
We will figure it out, but clearly you've taken the first step and we'll figure out the specific next steps to be
Fair
taken
enough.
properly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
that. Thank you. Okay, new business. The request for a 5-year contract relative to voting machines in accordance with MGL, Chapter 30B, Section 12B. And who is going to speak on that behalf?
I guess I could.
Do we have backup on that? I don't think we do.
No.
This is a procurement issue still?
Yes,
Okay.
it's the procurement of the voting machines
Yeah.
that has been subject of concern. If you recall, I addressed it last meeting and said that quotes were solicited orally that had become stale, and there were only 2 as opposed to 3. So we've redone the whole procurement process. We have 3 vendors to whom written solicitations for quotes will be sent tomorrow if you affirm this or approve this motion. And the reason for the necessity of action on the council's part is that the contract for the voting machines calls for a 2-year warranty, a 3rd year of maintenance, software maintenance and license fee that's incorporated in the price, but then 2 years beyond that is an extra fee, which brings the whole term out, including the software maintenance, out to a 5-year contract. And we can only procure up to 3 years without specific
extension.
approval. So that's what gives rise to this. And this motion also was drafted by the finance department, because we struggled a bit in terms of how to articulate exactly what we were looking for without writing a tome. So that's where we are, and that's the backup for it. It's to allow us to have the maintenance that goes along with the first year that's incorporated in the procurement.
Questions?
I would just say, would you like to have this motion put out on the floor and seconded and then open it up
Sure.
for discussion? But I don't believe there's much discussed because it would be pertaining to Mass General Law, Chapter 30B. So that being said, I'll make a motion to approve that the town enter into voting machine maintenance and license fee contracts up to 5 years in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30B, Section 12B.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. We can entertain some discussion on this.
And this is for this contract here. So if it comes up again in 5 years, it would be another vote?
Yes, it would be a separate procurement each time it becomes necessary.
And
Thank
we
you.
took that vote
Yes.
to move from 3 years to 5 years on copiers back
Yes,
in.
you did.
Right.
Right,
You
June
did.
maybe?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have just a general comment. You would not be aware of this, but whenever something comes of some substance before the council, the department head or individual that's petitioning the council to do something needs to be present to answer questions. Now, again, that's a
No,
reflection on
I
you.
understand your point. Technically, the town clerk is making this request. I'm just speaking because she's busy over there. But it's a procurement that was initiated by the town clerk's office, so I fully understand and respect your point. But that's why the finance director's not here,
Okay.
tonight anyway.
So we can vote.
Any other questions? I have one comment at the risk of making this more of an editorial. I have a feeling that the procurement process is a little more convoluted than it needs to be. We have addressed the request for voting machines in our capital plan and budgeting process. Our former clerk was given the green light to go ahead on July 1st or thereabout. And here we are at the end of October, and we're still having to go back to cross a T, dot an I, we drop, And I feel like it's a cat and mouse game sometimes, and I want to be on the record with that going forward, I think it behooves a closer watch by this council that the procurement process is not as arduous a process as it appears to be for a number of department heads.
Well, I certainly make note mentally and otherwise of your comments. In this particular instance, I think I suggested this last time. I think it was a lack of communication between departments. I think the clerk's office was under the impression that everything was set to go and was only recently informed that that was not the case.
I don't challenge that at all, and we certainly at this point will not hold the process up any longer because we need these machines in-house. We have a presidential state primary 4 months away, and our voting assistants and our registrars need to get training on these, so.
Well, to allay that concern,
Yeah.
the response date is November 5th, so we shorten the window for the prospective respondents or bidders to answer. And then the delivery would be November 21st. We put that 1 month out from, so I think we'll be okay.
Oh, I know you will be, but I think this is a prime example of there's always a landmine in our procurement process, and I don't think it needs to be that way. Any other questions or comments? Okay, motion is on the floor for approving an extension for a 5-year contract relative to voting machines in accordance with MGL Chapter 30B, Section 12B. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. Motion passes unanimously. And We're anxious to see these new machines. If they've taken on a life of their own. Summary, action items for our next meeting. Do we have any that need to be taken care of prior to then? It doesn't appear to be. So that said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We don't have an executive session, I'm sorry, scheduled for this evening. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. It's always unanimous. So we are adjourned at 7:21, and we'll be back in session on Tuesday, November the 12th. Thank you and good evening.